All right, let me ask you a Raiders question. They just signed Klint Kubiak to a 5-year deal. It's a big hire for the Raiders, considering Klint Kubiak seems like his career is ascending and just won a Super Bowl. What do you think of the Raiders closing the deal here? What do you think of of Klint Kubiak agreeing to go to this franchise?
Well, I'll tell you one thing in his favor. He's young. He's 38. So if he doesn't work out here, he'll go back somewhere as an OC. Then he'll bounce back. He'll get a second shot somewhere down the road as a head coach. Okay.
Yeah.
Seattle offered him an additional $4 million on top of what he's making currently to stay in Seattle and not go to Las Vegas. I think the Raiders had to put on the table like $15 million per season for him. It was, initially I thought Mark had offered 3 years and less than that. And then Clint's agent had talked about 6 years at $15 million, guaranteed, no buy downs, no offset clauses, a lead pipe lock, guaranteed $15 million a year for 6 years. He's got his work cut out for him. To be honest with you, just like the Niners have a multitude of needs offensively and defensively, the Raiders also are not just a quarterback away from being a contender. They're not even a quarterback away from being a 500 ball club. Okay. They've got some issues. When I look at that situation, I'm thinking, I could take a Mac Jones. I could take Kirk Cousins. I could trade that first pick in the draft, and I need a multitude of offensive and defensive players. I need offensive linemen. I need another wide receiver. On defense, I need linebackers like the Niners need linebackers. I need edge rushers besides Maxx Crosby like the Niners need edge rushers besides Nick Bosa. I need a safety. I need, Ohio State's got a great safety who used to be at Alabama. They got a great edge rusher also. They got a great inside linebacker. So, Ohio State's, I tell you, if I had 10 picks in a row in the first, I'd take those 3 Ohio State kids somewhere in the top 10 of the draft, all 3 of them. And I'd say I had a hell of a draft. Now, the thing about it is, are the Raiders so pressed to take a quarterback rather than saying, well, why not Mac Jones? Why not Kirk Cousins? Why not, whomever? And then I could draft. This is not a great year for quarterbacks in the NFL for the draft. Next year is loaded. This year, it's one guy who still, even at his best, when you get all of the analytics and grade him out, he's not in Elway. He's not Marino. He's not Jim Kelly. He's not Peyton Manning. He's not any of those guys, but that's who they're projected to take with the first pick. Next year, they got 5 or 6 quarterbacks who can rate as high or higher than Mendoza this year. So, you bring him in, you still got the same offensive line. You got the same wide receivers. You got the same tight end. You may change, one position, but he alone is not going to be able to be the answer to make up for all the other holes that you have to plug on your roster.
Yeah, it seems like you'd be setting him up for failure. Let me come back to Kubiak for a second. Last year, it seemed like Pete Carroll was very much a Tom Brady hire. It seemed like Brady had his fingerprints all over that, and it seemed it didn't work. Do you get the sense that this is another Brady hire, or is this a Mark Davis production? Who is Kubiak reporting to here?
Well, Mark has many occasions has said that Spytek, who played with Brady at Michigan, and Spytek is now the general manager, he came in from Tampa, and Brady are the 2 voices who run the football operations. So everything runs through those 2 guys, personnel, players, coaches, hires, and all that. Ironically, yesterday when they had the press conference and they brought in, Marcus Allen was there, Mike Haynes was there, Rich Gannon was there, Jim Plunkett was there, Charles Woodson was there, Howie Long was there, front and center. There was no Tom Brady.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Okay.
So that tells you a little bit about Tom Brady. He's not down at St. Bart's with some, 25-year-old out there on New Year's Eve when he should be working on the ball club, but he's got so many other interests. Here's the thing. The draft is April 23rd. In March, late March, he and other NFL players are over in Saudi Arabia playing in a flag football deal,
Yep.
getting paid appearance money and all that kind of stuff. And you got the draft at the end of April, and here it is, the tail end of March, and the guy's over in the desert somewhere playing flag football. Now, if you're in charge of football operations between now and the end of the draft, you should be living in that office every day. You should be burning the midnight oil with free agency and with the draft and potential trades or whatever else. The New Year's for the league starts, March 11th? You've got to be ready to. You got the combine in Indianapolis coming up February 23rd through March 2nd. Okay, I'm sorry. You've got a full plate. Your menu, your calendar is booked between now and the end of April with the combine, free agency, trades, and the draft. You got nowhere else to be.
I had heard that Brady seemed interested in bringing in a former Patriot person like Flores or Dayball, and then it's interesting that they pivoted and went and got a Shanahan McVay Kubiak guy. I don't know if Brady has much of a connection to Klint Kubiak. He's hot right now because he just won a Super Bowl, and then he's not at the introductory press conference. I wonder if Klint Kubiak really has a lot more power than Pete Carroll. It seemed like if the Raiders were gonna get Klint Kubiak, it's a lot like when the Niners got Kyle Shanahan. The Niners were the worst team in the league. Kyle Shanahan had options, and they had to basically say, hey, whatever you want, whatever GM you want, however long of a contract you want, you got a blank check.
Yeah, there were some mandates that were made, obviously. There's no doubt about that. And see that the other thing is, you've got some personnel issues also. Maxx Crosby basically had been at odds with Brady about being benched a couple of weeks before the end of the season and shut down. Max is a tremendous competitor. He's the life of that ball club. He is the leader in the locker room, so to speak. And he was upset that they shut him down.
Yeah.
And the thing about it was they said, well, they wanted to make sure they secured the first pick in the draft. And he goes, no, it's about winning ball games now. I don't give a hang about some drafting. I want to win now. I want to win every day I walk on the field. He's there. He beat Kubiak into the office yesterday morning. He was there at 6 a.m. Max was working out. Every day he's there at 6 a.m. I'm at practice one day. Have never met the young man. And he walks up to me, hey, Coach Walsh, I'm Maxx Crosby. How you doing? I look at him like, how
you know me?
Yeah. And he goes, oh,
he's like, well, I watch Grant Cohn a lot on YouTube.
He goes, I know who you are. And I talked with him. I said, I am so impressed with the way you play.
Yeah.
I was fortunate in all the years at the Raiders to be around a multitude of Hall of Famers, the Howie Longs and Ray Guy and, Jim Plunkett, who should be in the Hall of Fame, Cliff Branch, guys like that. Dave Casper, Art Shell, Gene Upshaw, great players. And this guy is right up there.
Yeah.
They can't afford to, have him be a disgruntled employee. How are you going to change the tune over there so you can attract some quality free agents? They have a lot of cap space this year. And they have the number one pick. They have to make the determination. How are they going to fill in a lot of holes they're like the Niners. They got holes in the offensive line. They need to have a center. They need a guard. They got two decent tight ends. They got a wide receiver who needs to be employed. They need to get another wide receiver. They need to, they got a decent running back. Okay. Then on defense, they have the same issues that Niners have.
Let me ask you one more question about Kubiak from a different perspective, from the Seahawks perspective, because that's more the Niners perspective. They have to replace him. They're going on their third offensive coordinator in 3 years under Mike McDonald. Any idea where they turn? Are they going to have some stiff like Kevin Patullo that sets him back?
Okay, now here's another issue. And I've had conversations with different coaches about this. And I have a firm belief that when I have because I look at some of the issues the Niners encountered years ago when they kept switching out their offensive coordinators. They had that quarterback from Utah who was the first pick in the draft.
Alex Smith.
Yeah, Alan. And he said, I had 6 different coordinators in 6 years, or 7 coordinators in 6 seasons. Okay.
Mhm.
You cannot continue to change the offensive terminology every year for the team. There's the continuity. I didn't. So therefore, now if I'm going to bring a new coordinator into Seattle, the first thing I'm thinking is I've got a, a veteran squad now. I've got a quarterback who functioned well, who was able to maximize his abilities and minimize his weaknesses. So we were able to win the Super Bowl with him not giving it away. I want you to run the same offense that we had with Klint Kubiak, the same
Mm.
terminology. Okay. So there's familiarity for the players, so they're not walking and having to learn a new language. I'm not teaching them in Greek, you know,
Right.
on the first day of spring when we're allowed to get together offensively, and there's a new coordinator, and all of a sudden that playbook's in Greek and it's no longer in English.
Yeah.
They're thinking like, oh, here we go. Even though there might be similarity, there's still a difference. So that's a
Yeah.
factor that's going to weigh heavily for McDonald making his choice.
It's got, and considering Darnold's had success since he's gotten to this system with Shanahan and Kevin O'Connell and Klint Kubiak, you don't want all of a sudden give him Cliff Kingsbury.
Correct. So yeah, and you cannot play quarterback with cliff notes. Okay.
No.
I know in the old days, when you go to English class and English lit, a lot of people would say, well, run to the bookstore. We're going to get the cliff notes because I didn't read the book. Well, you cannot quarterback with cliff notes. You got to have the playbook. You got to have the real meat and potatoes of what's there and not read the Reader's Digest version. You got to have the real book. And so that's a factor in success for Seattle this next year. In addition, Grant, the key thing now, every ball club in the league is going to be studying Seattle to know more about how they run that defense, about what they're doing on offense, what made their run game so effective, what made it so good with JSN at wide receiver. And even look at what they did with Kupp in the Super Bowl when JSN goes off the field with the ankle issue or whatever he had. All of a sudden, Kupp shows up and he's making some catches again. And then they use the tight end for a couple of key. So, yeah, people are going to study them. It's going to be tougher to win, to repeat, because people are going to study you inside and out and analyze everything you're doing to know you better.